3, 2, 1. Welcome to The Peaceful Truth, the podcast where we talk about everything from women empowerment, feminism, and everything in between. We are joined by two ladies today who are Roney, or Kate Penelope Roney, and Chelsey.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I talk so much about her on here. So finally, if people listen, they get a face to a name.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
So, well, first, we're sisters. You were on one of the first episodes a long time ago, like in
Yes.
2017.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, so thanks for making time today, especially with pepperoni. But first, I wanted you to tell me a little bit about yourself, both professionally and the very obvious thing that happened to you last year that's personal.
Yeah, so professionally, I work at Microsoft. I'm a program manager in marketing, and I support digital transformation efforts.
That's awesome. Well, really cool. So
Then I had a baby last year. This is her. Her name is Kate Penelope Roney.
that's really cool. I met someone today at my job, my 9 to 5, that she was naming her kid Penelope too, and I got so excited. She was pregnant.
Yay.
So it's popular. So beyond that, so I wanted to talk to you today about being a mom. I feel like being a modern mom is way different than it was even a few decades ago. Definitely. We kind of, what women's roles used to be is just kind of be the stay-at-home mom, but now we have to balance and make a lot of decisions about our time. So I thought it would be cool for people who don't know or are curious about being moms or moms to relate to a mom on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever experienced judgment in your decision for childcare or anything like that? And do you feel like it's common for people to judge whether you stay at home or not, and other women, and vice versa?
Definitely. I think moms have really strong opinions one way or the other. Either moms really believe that, you should stay at home and raise your baby safe and sound, or that you should have a career. And I think that you probably would experience judgment one way or the other, no matter what you do, from different people, depending on what they think is best. And everyone just wants to share their opinion, I think mostly because they love you so much and your child so much, and they want you to do what's right for them.
Right.
So people aren't bashful in sharing. But I try to not take it personally, and everyone just has to stay in their own lane, I think, and not judge each other. And I think being a stay-at-home mom would be the hardest ever job.
Right.
And I think a lot of the working moms I talk to every day say, I couldn't do it. It would be the very hardest job. So
It would be hard.
a lot of props to stay-at-home moms, but everyone just has to choose their way.
I agree. So why do you think it's important for people to end the stigmas, both just other people who aren't current young moms with young kids judging, and both like just women in general judging each other? Do you think it's important to end that stigma?
Yeah, we just have to build each other up, and as moms, because no decision is really right or wrong, you just have to support one another, because both ways are really hard and both ways have pros and cons. So, I think to end the stigma, we just have to accept each other and each other's decisions, and as long as we're not putting our babies in harm's way, we have to support each other. And by being public about, saying, hey, here's what I chose, but I'm cool with what you chose, then hopefully that stigma can start to end. And I mean, you kind of feel that, definitely.
Do you feel like online, I thought of this question, I didn't have it written down, but do you feel like the online world has changed the judgment to be more vocal, or just like more in your face with blogs? And I know there's like a lot of groups you're a part of, and I'm sure those are groups that you chose specifically because they were really welcoming and open. But what do you think about like different groups like that and moms online?
groups online, they really do judge each other. And they really do, sometimes the groups tear each other down and some build each other up. So when you're online and you're a new mom navigating that space, like, it's a great space to be in. And we're so lucky to have social media so that we can have a space to share and we can have a space to listen and ask questions. And it makes you feel not so alone.
Yeah.
Because you hear of other women having the exact same issue you are with either themselves or their baby. So that's really comforting. But I think some groups are more friendly than others, and you just have to work to find the one that kind of goes with how you would treat other people.
That's true. She is a wiggle worm. And how old is she? I forgot to tell everyone, even though I know.
Almost 6 months.
Oh my goodness, she's so cute. I'm super biased though. She's my bug.
Hello, Auntie.
Hi, baby. So let's see. How is it like learning to balance? I think that's the thing. Like, I'm not a mom yet, but that's the thing that freaks me out the most. So what's it like learning to balance?
I think learning to balance is the hardest part of being a mom. No doubt. I think I think whenever you have a kid, you kind of feel like a brand new person yourself. And I feel like I had to relearn everything that I already knew how to do, like down from going to the bathroom to writing an email to cooking food. Like, I just felt differently about everything. And I felt like I just had to relearn everything in the context of being having a different role put on you overnight. And I think that's really hard. And the balance part is difficult too. I think, it's, no matter if you choose to stay home or go to work, I think it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Because if you choose to stay home, then you're not, sometimes you don't feel balanced in the fact that your day can just get away from you and, you're not seeing other adults very much. But then if you go to work, you're not feeling balanced because every morning you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I only get 20 minutes with my baby when she's awake. And then you leave and then you just think about them all day. And, even when you're at work, you don't feel like you're doing a good job. And when you're at home, you feel shorted. So I think no matter what you choose, balance would be really difficult. And I think being a mom feels very extreme.
Right. Yeah, it sounds very intense. Do you feel like being a professional parent is a little different for a man versus a woman, or do you feel like it's a case-by-case basis?
I think it is different. I mean, no matter how hard, no matter how equal things are, I think
your husband's super hand-on, Aaron.
Yeah, he's really great. I think no matter what, though, the women have hormones that tie you to the baby, and especially, or probably either way. But if you, grew the baby, I just feel like you're really, really tied to them. And those hormones that come with growing a human and, your body's just adjusting for so long, both before and after their birth.
Yeah.
I think that, it just makes you feel so much more invested. And I think, Aaron's so great. It's just it's like I feel so tied to her.
Yeah, it's just different no matter what.
A little bit more objectively, like, oh, she's crying, she's fine, like, she's not gonna die. But like for me, I'm like, well, it feels like she might die.
Yeah, doomsday mentality.
Yeah, and so I think it's just those kind of things that make it different, and I don't think that can ever change really, no matter what. So I think dads and moms definitely have like a different perspective, but that's good because, you can balance each other out.
Cool. And so moving on to kind of maternity leave topics, like I've learned a lot and I want to dive deeper into this topic as its own episode. But you were lucky and had a longer than average, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
overall maternity leave. But getting that longer time, and some women like get a month and can only afford a month.
Yeah, I know.
How what would it have been like to go back after a month, and how do you feel like that should change for maternity leave?
Man, that's a really hard question. I think it would have been impossible for me to have gone back after a month, mostly because of my C-section. I was still in a lot of pain.
Yeah, you had a cesarean section.
Yeah, and it hurt very much. So I think it would have felt nearly impossible to do that because I hurt a lot. Like most things in my life weren't even close to back to normal-ish. Like I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't lift things. I could barely walk around the block. I mean, I think it's terrible for moms who only have a month. I just can't imagine it. And I feel so lucky that Microsoft gives you those 5 months of paid leave. And if a company can afford to make that a possibility for its employees, I think they definitely should try. It's a different story if a company like can't afford it for good reason. But if they can, then I think they absolutely should try to give you as much time
Right.
if they can. And maybe if they can't pay you, maybe, provide you that job security. Like, yeah, you might leave for 5 months, or even longer. I mean, babies are so tied to you for breast milk purposes and just growth and learning purposes for that whole first year. I mean, I just can't imagine having less than the time that I had with her.
Right. And it's not fair also because you didn't choose your C-section. She was breached. And a lot of women can't choose their C-section. So if you're recovering from that, it's not like it was your choice anyway.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't have even really had time with your baby. Because I feel like at a month I was still suffering so much myself. Like it was very, of course I love her deeply with everything I have since day one. But it's very hard to be very ecstatic and, like feel lighthearted when you're in pain, when you're hurting a lot.
Speaking of that, what are some postpartum things that you never anticipate or no one ever told you?
That's a really good question. I feel like it wasn't so much on the physical side. Like, I feel like you get pretty well warned. Like, yeah, you're going to be in pain. All your hormones are going to be going up and down. I feel like all those are things that you get warned about. I think that's something that people don't talk as much about is just like the intensity of it all. Like in a really good way. Like you're intensely so happy and you're intensely so joyful and you're intensely so in love, but you're also intensely stressed out and you're like intensely trying to relearn how to do everything again. And so with another human in your arms. So I think people kind of just don't say how intense it can feel, because I think, when you describe it to someone else, you think about how much you love the kid. So you don't really like go into anything else. Because it's kind of a moot point because you would do it anyway. Like it doesn't.
That makes sense. So what was it like going back to work? Was it super intense? And like, was it what you thought? What was it like going back after?
So everyone had made it out to be like the worst day of my life. Like it was for sure going to be the worst day of my life. Like you're going to cry. You're going to feel like awful. Like people had really said terrible things and I was ready. I was like, okay.
I remember you being ready.
I'm going to feel terrible. I'm dreading it. Like I felt terrible. And then I left, I dropped her off at daycare and she was so happy. And then I knew she was well taken care of because I trust where I trust where I drop her off every day. And you have to feel trust or else you can't feel happy. But I was able to walk away knowing she was okay. And then I went to work and one of my thoughts was, ooh, I can pee by myself. Or, like, oh, I can run and grab what I want for lunch instead of literally feeling like I was gonna cry when I was trying to make lunch because I would like put something down and then I would have to pick her up and it was just so frustrating. Like, I think, it was good to step away for a little bit, and I think it personally makes me a better mom. Like, when I get home, like, I feel like I have unending patience.
Oh, that's good. That's something I didn't think about either. So there are some like why is it so important for you personally? For we talked about this a lot, and I think that's going to be key for me to be a mom. Is that people ask you separate things from Pepper's life and refer not to you just as a mom, and that's not just who you are. And why do you feel like that's so important for people to keep in mind when they're addressing and just having a relationship, even a friendship with a mom?
Yeah, I think if you have a friend becoming a mom and maybe you're not a mom yourself, I think it's really important to keep in mind, like, that person really, really needs you to be a friend to her, like, not to her baby, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I mean, ask her how the baby is, because obviously that's all they kind of want to talk about. But it's also really important to ask them, like, how are you? Like, and not in relation to the baby. Like, how's your cooking going? How's your hobby going? Like, how are you doing as a person? As a side tangent, I think society is getting better at realizing, like, yeah, we are separate humans from our children, and we should have other thoughts and hobbies and joys and sorrows, and so.
It doesn't make your love any less. I think that was like what the stigma was.
Yeah, like, if you don't talk about your kid every time, you must love your kid less. Well, that is just, like, far, far, far from the case. I think for me, like, I'm so thankful when someone asks me about me. We're two separate people, and they'll always ask about Pepper too, and my friends have been really good about it.
Good. That's awesome. So this is my last question. What's something you should not say to a mom? I remember I tried really hard to be as aware as possible throughout your pregnancy and throughout afterward of how to treat you as like my sister and friend. And I did screw up once pretty bad, where I said I didn't invite you to something that all of our friends were going to just because you had a newborn. Are there things like that people shouldn't do, and what are like some things that you feel like people should keep in mind?
I think there are probably a couple things, like, one of which is people, that's a big one. Like, always, even if your friend just had a baby like a day ago, like, if all your friends are getting together, I think it's really important to still tell them and say you're invited, and not say I know you're not coming or something like that. Like, don't preface it. Just tell, even if they're not coming, like, it makes them feel like way better. Like, even if they can't leave the house for a couple months, it's really important to make sure that they're still thought about as humans and separate people, because you feel when you have a baby, you feel kind of like you lost you in there somewhere. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah.
Like, you feel like you lost you.
That's why we were just talking about with like the personal, like making sure you ask.
So on that note, it's really important to ask people to hang out, even if you know that they can't or their schedule has changed or whatever, because you never know. Like, maybe one night, like, maybe on the fifth ask, maybe they'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna come, or yeah, or yeah. I just think it's really important to invite them. And then the other thing I'd say is, like, feel free to ask women personal questions, like, are you breastfeeding, or tell me about how your vagina is doing, or all that kind of stuff. But I think the big thing here is not to judge, like, oh, are you breastfeeding? And then if they're not, be like, oh, scroll off some stat about how breastfeeding is better. I think, you just have to let moms do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Knowing that their child's interest is the best at heart.
Cool. Well, Chelsey, what are you looking forward to this week? that's how we wrap it up. Unless there's anything I didn't touch on that you wanted to say.
No, thanks for interviewing me. You've been the best ever, sister, through a very long, because she's been a little sick, 6 months, but you've been such a good sis.
Oh, thanks.
What am I looking forward to? Well, in 1 week, Pepper gets weighed, and I'm really excited to find out how much my chunky monkey weighs.
She's so chunky and healthy. Yay!
Eating all the food. And
Good job, Pepper.
Some solid food. So I'm really excited to see what is up with her stats.
Well, cool. And let's see, what am I looking forward to this week? Oh, God, I didn't think about it before I asked you. I am looking forward to, I'm looking for places to live this next year, so I'm looking forward to exploring.
Fun. It's always fun to find a new place to call your home.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Chelsey.
Yeah, thanks, Kenz. Love you guys.
Love you. Bye, guys.